that's me. So a few words on how this looks from the operator's perspective in this sandbox. And being in sandbox is always emotional because then you play, then again you fight with somebody for your toys. And we've been, of course, selling iPhones for many years, and now these last years, the big shift is happening inside the telco industry, and the question is, can we shift from selling iPhones to actually enabling drones to fly? And that's a very interesting question. I'm representing here a classical telco. We are the mobile-only telco operator for many, many years, been rich and so forth, so doing really well. And been also a poster child for Nokia, because we've been using mostly only Nokia equipment for our network and actually, so to speak, pushing it to the limits. So I will talk a little bit on a few strange things. First of all, I will a little bit explain why big corporate world is not very rational. It's very much emotion and psychology driven, and this very much impacted what happened in previous times with the 4G. We'll a little bit touch on not little bit, quite heavily touch on what is the actual state of the 5G rollout and what really matters, because the hype is huge. The sound wave of 5G coming on is extreme, and no one can actually understand what's going on. And then, of course, some practical examples how we are trying to reach out to different new business verticals with the 5G technology. So first of all, few words on the 5G. Somebody in the press, you can get an assumption that the 5G will just start out of nowhere, just will show up. And many operators believe that if they haven't done their homework with the 4G, they can just skip this 4G class and just jump straight into the 5G, which is wrong. So the primary question each operator should ask, has he used the time given for the 4G to actually make mobile data as the primary source of internet access for their customers? And in many countries, the answer is no. And the reason for this is, again, quite emotional, is that, first of all, in classical relationship between the customer and operator, it's very asymmetrical. So normally the customers are scared because the operator is big and arrogant and rich, and he has his price plans and everything, and the customer has to subdue. Plus, normal telco is rather greedy, and and all these financial logic sometimes does really strange things. And from these strange things, I would like to highlight one of the homeworks many operators haven't still accomplished, and it's stemming from a very, very, very old psychological problem in a telco business, which is called unit-based pricing. And there are many reasons why lots of experts in the telco industry believe that there's actual reason that unit costs are probably the best way how to manage the investments and how to manage the tariffs for the end users. But why we believe and why we have been monitoring this has been misleading is that we have been lying to regulators about the units. We have been actually paying interconnect prices. We have been liking the activity-based costing, and plus, very importantly, in very many cases, leading mobile operator in the country is owned by a fixed-line mother, and fixed-line mother doesn't want to die. So she does strange things to her daughter to actually make her financial models not so nice. And you can still see in many countries that investments in residential fiber is valued higher than actually rollout of decent mobile broadband network, which is a little bit backwards looking. Our claim many years ago was that there is no reason to build your models, build your investment, or build your price plans based on the fake idea that there is a unit cost for each megabyte. So we don't care. There is no cost for us relevantly to how many megabytes you download from us. I don't care, because this is a typical chart of our network load during the daytime, and for most of the day, the network's totally empty, so we don't care, totally don't care. We care about the peak time, though. This is the time normally at night when everybody is
watching movies and doing whatnot, and this is creating congestion in the network, but this is solved by CAPEX, so by capital investment. It's not about your operational expenditure, and this creates completely different approach. So we went this so-called flat rate way and actually tried to build the services where we are not punishing the end user for using of internet by, that each and other Facebook link you are pressing is actually will cost you some extra little cent. And we're very happy with this. So we have become the most loaded mobile network on this planet. So we are pushing the most gigabytes through the average base stations and anybody else on Nokia networks. And we are still able to deploy top 10 customer experience by the quality. So this is possible. So you can actually create a mobile. You were able already on the 4G times to create a network and experience that the consumers can use mobile data as a primary source of internet, which is still not the case in very, very, very many places. So we even went as far as deployed a TV service over the mobile network, and with some Google technology, and it goes. So what we are saying, the future is mobile only. So there is no. This is not probably the best time to invest in residential fiber, given the idea that the 5G is coming on. And it is coming. There is all this cry and hype about the industrial revolutions. So everybody knows these days that the 5G is bringing about the fourth industrial revolution. And most probably it does. And for last years, we've been launching 5G for the first time on the planet many times in many countries. Everybody is crying and screaming and 5G and 5G and 5G. And then now everybody is scared, and then there's all the hats from the aluminium and so on and so forth. So, but the practical outcome, if you have seen this beautiful classical chart, it's the Gartner hype cycle. So it normally places different new technology on the hype cycle when it eventually peaks, and then there's a free fall where everybody knows that this new technology is not so cool as we were expecting it to be, and then eventually in time it climbs out and becomes normal. And the funny thing is that according to Gartner, the 5G is just about on the actual brink. So probably over the next 18 months, you will hear many revealing things about the 5G, that it's not as cool as we were expecting it to be, and and so whatnot. So, I mean, the hype of the 5G is almost over, most likely. And I will try to explain the reason behind it and maybe how this looks from the practical side. The one thing you will probably notice that the general discussion about the 5G very often has been about the speed. So the speed and speed and speed, because speed has been sold by telecommunication operators to the customers for, I don't know, 20-something years. The speed was the only more or less understandable rational factor which was being used in the marketing. And the funny thing, there is not so much content right now. So the TV and high-definition TV clearly is not a content that can load a 4G network. So cloud gaming maybe is a normal use case for speed, which is not doable normally in the 4G network, and it actually needs the 5G network. But speed is clearly not the most important reason why we should build the 5G networks. This is a beautiful holy picture. It's a 5G triangle, which is a single way how to depict the most important directions what the 5G standard will bring about. And on the upper corner, of course, there's a extreme broadband, but it's not so important. The most important things are here on the other two angles, which is massive communication and critical communication on the other side. So for us as the operator right now, we are not capable of deploying as many sensors as it's allegedly expected. So we can deploy thousands of sensors per square mile, But with the new technology, we'll be able to deploy millions of sensors per square mile. And on the other side, we can achieve latencies, let's say, of 12 milliseconds today. For autonomous driving and many things alike, you need a latency that goes 1 to 2 milliseconds, which again will be brought about by the 5G standard. But why the hype will actually burst and why it will be happening? We should a little bit look on the timeline how 5G is arriving. So if you take a look, what happened at the end of 2018, there was actually a first standardization release where actually it was said how the 5G is going to look like. And it was not very successful, so it needed some fixing. So this first wave of standardization for the 5G brought about mainly and just the topics about the broadband. So there isn't yet a standard for 5G which is describing all the other beautiful features. So we are expecting next wave, release 16, happen somewhere this year, which will actually set the standardization for critical machine communication, like for the things like vehicle to everything, and like in the human language what we call autonomous driving. So this hasn't been done yet. So what we have been seeing so far are different forms of, so to speak, 5G broadband. But even cooler technology will come down the line in 2021. Plus, we have to take into account that since the standardization has been done, it will take at least 18 months before the vendors are actually capable of deploying this technology to the field. Therefore, still this day, we are deploying just a few 5G base stations in our network because the technology is standardized, but it's not yet ready. We cannot buy as many decent 5G base stations as we would like to. So therefore, the time how the 5G will come into your life will actually take many years. It will definitely will not come next year. It will just take much more time. The other interesting concept, sometimes it's not being fully understood, is this spooky stuff about frequencies, because everybody is talking about that how we cover the country with super high frequency radios and will be delivering tens of gigabytes per second data. Maybe someday, but again, not so soon, because the physical reality is that the higher is the frequency band, the closer it actually, so to speak, works. And the lower the band is, the further it gets. But the lower the band is, the smaller is the, so to speak, the data pipe you can reach out. Therefore, the classical picture, at least for the foreseeable future, will still look that you will use high band radio solutions in a very high dense urban areas, and as you will go away from dense population, you will actually go lower. So the idea that you have to cover whole country with super high frequency data is just wrong. The other beautiful stuff, which has created enormous amount of fear and rage about the 5G, it's coming from this very cool new technology called massive MIMO. In essence, this is the way how can you actually save the energy consumption of the radio and actually deliver super high speeds. So this very boring little gray stuff is probably the high tech of the 5G era, because this is 64 passive antennas which are actually calculating where you are and concentrating the beam. So you get only you get the data you need. You get it in much higher speed, and the radio station is not radiating super high power beam all the time to everybody, but it can actually get the speed just for you. And the idea that some antenna is concentrating the beams on you, this is of course super sexy, and everybody is totally scared, and we'll see how it's gonna roll so far. But coming back to human language, what is going to clearly happen, not so fast as we were probably expecting, but it will happen, is of course very super high speeds in broadband will be here. Critical communication, which will be managing drones and whatnot, will be here. And super high number of sensors will be here. It will just take time and some years. And one of the reasons why it will also take time is what we have learned from discussing with the customers lately, is that no one needs 5G. Nobody is waiting for it, apart from the conferences and venues where everybody is gathering and discussing what we will do within 10 years, like somewhere down the line, when everybody will be driving autonomous vehicles and whatnot. But tomorrow, I don't need it, and no one needs it. And industries are fine without it. And that was a little bit shocking to us. And therefore, we a little bit shifted our behavior and started to partner with startups, started to partner with universities, and actually trying to reach out in the industries and trying to build new business verticals to show examples, rational examples for digital transformation. What can you actually do with this 5G? Because 5G is a cool marketing term, but what's going to happen? And so we've been involved in enormous prototyping and spending our resources to actually prototype new things, and a lot of stuff in transportation, in aviation, in the military. A few examples. The earliest area where we, so to speak, ventured was defense. And interestingly enough, defense industry has been intentionally not smartphoneized for many years because it was rightly considered not safe to use your smartphone on the battlefield. But it turns out that, as it happens in many cases these days, that civil technologies have surpassed the capabilities of government technology. So the civil technology is coming in now in the classical field of tactical communication, and there are beautiful, beautiful disruptions happening from the fact that you can actually use smart technology, tactical LTE solutions on the battlefield. Plus, the practice from Ukraine, from Iraq and Syria shows that no one touches base station. No one kills it. All sides make calls. So in Syria and Iraq and Ukraine, base stations stay, which is counterintuitive, probably, but it still works. The other side is solutions for mobility. Transportation has also been rather backwards for quite some time, and there's a great place for Baltic Sea region partnerships, and there are new beautiful buzzwords like corridor as a service, so actually creating the ecosystem for fully digitalizing the corridors between different means of transportation, like air and sea and transport with sensors and e-document flows, and very sexy. The other part is, of course, classics sensing and drones and all the stuff that you can mount on drones. And this is a picture from our live product, where we are supporting the firefighters in the forest to actually map and locate the fire which is happening under the ground and is not visible. And we are so mapping the heat signature and coordinating the actual firefighting, which brings about probably the strangest of business verticals we are involved in, is the question, can mobile operator enable beyond visual line of sight for drones? Because classically, the drone business is not picking up fast enough in the commercial side, because it's almost anywhere on the planet. It's not legal to fly drone if you don't see it, particularly for the small drones. So the question is, and our hypothesis, and we are not alone in this idea, that the mobile base stations are very well placed to actually serve as communication towers for small, low-flying drones and inform other. And so we are partnering initially with Lufthansa systems and now with other players to actually create a joint system for pilots and authorities. So if I'm flying a drone, I can actually inform others about my altitude, my navigational direction, and everything else. So there is allegedly a nice potential for this stuff. And a little bit of fun at the very end. As we went on, we unintentionally achieved the altitude record of how high up in the air you can actually shoot the mobile signal. So we reached 26 kilometers in the air with our vertically directed base station, which was used for the space for the balloon-based rocket launch platform. So not very rational, but just beautiful. Yeah. In any case, so that's it. That was very, very shortly about how the psychology of the big, rich telcos works and why the 5G is probably not going to come tomorrow, but it will definitely be here. And it will look much, much, much different for you and for us as a telco. And if you want to do something like this, we are very, very, very much open to become friends, and you can clearly join us these days very much. So, thank you.